Welcome into the PEDs podcast. Maybe. I don't know. We're here. You
We've
got
been on a
myself,
long vacation.
and you got Mattoon. What's happening, man?
Dude, I haven't seen you since you won the ship. So congrats, man. It's been like almost a year. Where we
Yeah,
been?
it's we've we had a new baby over here, so life got weird. We haven't had as much time to podcast. Andy's been working with his wife on work crap. Boyer's been, boyering on the side, daddying, getting back into life. So it's been rough. We haven't even been podcasting for the other league. It's been pretty quiet around here. Been kind of disappointing. So here we are with a little mid-season breakdown. We'll talk a little bit about trades, how you guys look moving forward, and kind of talk about maybe did we sell off too early? Should some people start selling off? Some of those situations. So let's jump into it. Real quick, going into week 8. Boyer shockingly leads the good division 6-1, followed by me. I suck at 2-5. Paul at 2-5. Matt at 2-5. This division should have been mine for the taking. I have fallen apart. The Bag Boys have maintained where they're at. Um, they beat me early, didn't help, and they've had some good luck so far with points against, being down at 477. Nobody else in my division is under 507. So they're 30 points lower on points against, which might help them out a little bit as well.
Yep.
Going to the bad division, Lesac at 7-0, running away with that division right now. Bernsey following up at 4-3. Andy selling off at 2-5, and Underhill buying, selling, doing his thing at 2-5. We're not sure what he's doing, but he's there at 2-5. The Colin division is led by you at 6-1, followed by Nolan, shockingly at 5-2. Colin Kelly, 4-3, followed by the not Colin, Jer Fry at 0-7. That's not a surprise to anybody. We kind of expected them to just kind of tank away their season. Not have a lot of max points for, not win a lot of games. They did tell me the other day their hope was to win a game this year. So we'll see if they can pull it off somewhere. Um,
They're gonna need to score more than 35 points a game to get one.
yeah, Justin Fields no longer starting for the time being. Anthony Richardson putting up 8 points. Quarterbacks are rough, which, sometimes in a dynasty league, you need a quarterback to score you some points. Granted, Mahomes has not been doing that for me, which is probably why I'm at 2-5. I know I'm not supposed to talk bad about your boy, but fantasy wise, he's not helping me.
He doesn't need to. They're saving all the touchdowns for the postseason.
That's, real football is what matters to him, not fantasy. This is dumb. Dumb. If I would have known that was the case, I would have gotten rid of him.
Right, right.
All right. Mattoon, let's jump into some trades, starting back with me versus me, not me versus you. Me
We can
making
say
a
it was me
terrible
versus
trade
you.
with you. I gave away Kamara to get Zamir White. I really had high hopes for Zamir White and the Raiders this year. I thought that bringing in Minshew, having Devontae Adams, uh, drafting Brock Bowers, this would free up some of that run game. Zamir White looked good for a while last year when he got the lead. It's just not going that way this year. Kamara could have probably saved me a couple weeks early on.
Yep.
Got rid of him. That might have been the start to the tank of my season here. But it looks good for you right now.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was like you where maybe I wasn't as high on Zamir, but I thought he could be a good steady running back three flex, for this season, maybe next season. They just have too many holes. They were run heavy at the end of last year. So I expected more than what we've gotten. And I think probably every player in that Vegas locker room has expected more than what they've gotten as well. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you sending Kamara my way. Outside of the last week's 2.5 points, he's been solid. Putting up 41 points on my bench was huge. So
Spencer Rattler might not be the biggest help for Kamara right now either. Let's be honest.
no, and Olave and Shaheed
Rashid
being
Shaheed being down. Yeah.
yep.
All
So
right. Well,
but
that
yeah, so that was that. And then I think I kicked off the first two trades of we'll call it the true fantasy football year where I sent your 26 second to Colin Kelly for Kittle. Now, for reference, Colin Kelly had Dalton Kincaid, Kittle, Evan Ingram, Noah Fant. So he was loaded at tight ends, and Joku was starting the season off a little banged up. So I felt like I needed to go get a tight end, reached out to the guy with four of them, and gave up a future second for Kittle. What do you think, man?
I love giving up my future second for Kittle. I get a second's a second. Anybody can end anywhere during a year. Clearly, I'm at 2-5 right now, but I don't expect to be 2-5 going into next year or in the 25 season going into 26. I do have a young team, so my hope is moving forward we get better. But I love it for you. Kittle can definitely be a help to push you in the right direction this year. So I love that trade. And right
Yeah,
now,
for sure.
Kittle's one of the only semi-healthy ones in San Fran.
Yeah, he's tight end one on the year so far, knock on wood. He's been a little banged up, but um, we'll see, man. And I'm hoping I can get another couple years out of him too. So he's not terribly old.
Yeah. Uh,
31.
there's a Luke McCaffrey trade. Not worried about it.
Don't care.
Samaje Perine, good work to be on the trade block and moving this year because you're old. Um, Bryce Young got traded for Danny Dimes. Um, that I would much rather have Danny Dimes right now. I mean,
Yep.
even for the next couple of years, I think I'd rather have Danny Dimes than Bryce Young.
Yep.
So, not that either one I want to be playing in a single quarterback league, but I think I'd rather have Danny Dimes for the next couple of years. So, there's that. I'm not going to talk too much more about that.
No, no, let's skip to the one that
It's
we'll
starting all
call it
sorts of
was
controversy.
yeah,
All sorts of
it was a
controversy.
controversial, yeah, a controversial trade. So Nolan accepts a trade where he sends Waddle and a 25 second to Matt for Saquon Barkley. Did you like the way I phrased that?
Say yes, yes, yes. And Saquon put up some big weeks right away when no one got him, which helped propel him.
Yep.
I also put in for Saquon, but this trade got accepted before Matt had a chance to possibly negotiate. And that's why you don't leave trades sitting out there. No one will tell you that. You leave a trade sitting there for an hour and a half and you must pull it. You can't leave it for longer than that. Right? I think that's the Nolan rule.
It, 10 minutes,
15
man.
minutes, 15
Yeah.
minutes, 10 minutes. But anyway, Saquon has definitely helped propel Nolan towards where he's at. I wanted him.
Yep.
I think if I would have gotten him, it would have pushed me in the right direction. But I didn't. So man,
So
let's
I'm
talk
gonna
about
chime in on
Matt.
that.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I wanted to chime on that. So this trade got floated out there as an initiate a conversation, to initiate negotiations, if you will. Put some feelers out there because CMC had just been ruled out, put on IR, and so Matt sat there and said, "Crap, I'm losing CMC for a while. My wide receivers are older. I'm gonna start selling a couple of our players." This trade got accepted immediately, wasn't expected. And correct me if I'm wrong, Matt has not sold any players since that trade.
I don't believe so.
I think that was his one and only move. So someone who thought maybe, hey, I should sell off, really only sold off one piece. He got Waddle,
Oh,
which like the future for. Obviously, Waddle without Tua, and really the Dolphins without Tua hasn't been great.
No,
Uh,
Matt, um, did Matt send me Kelsey? Did he have Kelsey?
oh, yep. Sorry. Well, let's go ahead and let's chat about that one then, because that makes sense too. So Matt moved Travis Kelsey to you for Palmer in a second.
Correct.
So so he moved Kelsey and he moved Saquon, still got CMC, still got DeAndre Hopkins, still has Deontay Johnson, who's having a great year. So Rashad Bateman surprisingly having a good year. So Matt started to sell but hasn't fully committed to the sell. And we'll get to that in a little bit. So I don't hate what he got for it. I love Nolan's side of it. Nolan had depth at wide receiver, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, especially for this year. Nolan was hoping to push all in to go get himself a playoff push. Clearly, Waddle with Tua out. It was pre Tua going down for the seventh time with concussion protocol. But without Tua, it's looked really damn good for Nolan.
Mhm.
Tyreek's not been good. Waddle's not been good. Jonnu Smith had a good game the other week because they dump it off to the tight end. It's been all run game for Miami since Tua's been out. So looking back on it, I love this trade for Nolan. I'm not even mad about it for Matt because long term it should help Matt. Um, but
I just think he could have gotten more.
yeah, I don't disagree. I was looking to offer a couple first or a first and a second and a player. Um, but like we said, it got accepted and Matt didn't really have a chance to counter with me. So
Yep.
here's where we landed. But then
Yep.
I turned around. I realized that Kelsey wasn't going to help me at this point because my team is not winning football games. And I moved Kelsey and a third to Nolan for Tyrone Tracy and Sean Tucker. So I took a shot on two young running backs for Kelsey, and I moved Palmer in a second for him. So I moved Palmer a second and a third probably for Tracy and Tucker. I
Yep.
didn't really feel great about it, but nobody else wanted to buy into Kelsey, and I wanted him more or less off my roster because it at this point it's not going to matter to me. I still have Fryermuth, I still have Ott, and I still have some options at tight end. So it was take a shot on some young running backs.
Yeah. And I like Tyrone Tracy a lot. Sean Tucker's actually been getting the last 2 weeks a decent amount of touches as well. You've got Rashad White, so I think the Tucker made sense. Um, yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier. Kittle went for a second. Kelsey basically went for a second and some change. So I don't hate the value you got back, because it didn't make sense, to keep holding Kelsey. So.
Right.
Yep, I understand. I understand the buy and I understand the sell.
All right. So then we have a Mike Williams sell. No worries on that. Trey McBride and a 25 fourth to Lisack for Goddard, Keaton Mitchell, and Boyer's 25 first. So Trey McBride nets Goddard, Mitchell, and a probably late first because Boyer should be in the playoffs. So thoughts on Trey McBride?
Yeah, I think during the draft, Undy was open to moving McBride based off kind of where the board was falling, and it was kind of right around that late first, early second, 201, 202 range. And so I like the fact that Undy got himself a first. That actually made Undy's third first for the 2025 draft. So he's got, maybe while not all of them were projected to be, early draft picks, he's still got three draft picks in the first round. And we've seen you can make things happen during the draft with that. So for someone that needs to get younger, he's got all the firepower to move around in that draft if he needs to. And then he got Goddard and Keaton Mitchell. Keaton Mitchell, we saw was electric last year when he was healthy and got the ball. Obviously, he's still coming back from that injury. He's behind Henry, but who knows how long Derrick Henry's gonna be able to do this. And so I don't mind taking the flyer there as an extra piece. then Goddard gives him a serviceable tight end this season as well. So good job, Mundy. I like it. Lee Sack, I think it makes sense for he's young and rebuilding and I can't even say rebuilding anymore. He is fully there. But he's young, so McBride makes a good tight end addition to that. So good
Yep,
job, Lee Sack.
I'd agree with that. Uh, so then we moved down to a Mike Evans trade, which at the time Mike Evans was, tearing it up. So Mike Evans in a 26th first goes to you for Jaleel McLaughlin, Noah Gray, a 25 first, and a 27 second. So essentially, you backed up a year in firsts. You went from a 25 to 26. But the 26 was Underhill's, which is probably going to be middle to early for a Nolan's 25 first, which right now is looking to be at least consolation championship range. If not possibly wild card. So he should be back six. And then you move to possibly a front six. And you got Mike Evans out of it. Right now that stinks because Mike Evans might be done for the year. I mean, he's done for at least a handful of weeks here. Um, but Mike Evans has definitely been a big piece for you.
Yep.
So run us through the thought process. I know that Jaleel McLaughlin was just kind of he's going to get some touches. Noah Gray, I know that you liked him as the backup there to Kelsey, but he's not helping you this year. Probably not helping you much next year.
Yeah, Noah Gray is my guy. I stand loyal to him, and that honestly might have been the hardest piece of this trade to part with. All jokes aside, I love the guy. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think they just signed him to an extension. Clearly, they see the value in him, and we'll see what his role is maybe 2 years down the road. But yeah, the thought process was, Undy at the time wanted, I think, like a pair of seconds or something along that ballpark for Evans. He also was trying some younger pieces. And so one of the conversations that we had was, um, I was willing to give not only 1 second some younger pieces for Evans, but again, he wanted to rebuild and he wanted to rebuild quickly. So I gave up a 25 first. And in turn, I got back a 26 first. I don't think any of us anticipated Nolan to this was right around the Saquon trade. Didn't fully anticipate Nolan to be sitting at, 5-2, which he is. So I was thinking maybe more it was going to be a, 5, 6, 7, 8 range versus potential playoff, roster that he's put together. So that was kind of my thoughts on it. But now we know a little bit more. Evans is down. I rode Evans hot for a couple weeks. He still helped me get the win last week against Andy. Thank you for one catch for 25 yards and a touchdown as I was down 5 points. Sorry, Andy. But what I'm seeing is they've got a week 12 bye, so he'll miss 3 games, I believe, and then be back. So hopefully I'll get him back there.
Right. I mean, and for you, if as long as you're making playoffs, you just need him back by what, week 15?
Yeah, 15, 16 would be ideal.
Right. Preferably at least week 14, give him a week to work himself up to speed.
Yeah. So,
Um,
anything you feel strongly about on that one?
no, I mean at the time I like that on your end, getting Mike Evans and a first for a couple pieces and a second, right? Because you flipped first and you gave up a couple
I
pieces
give
in a
up a second.
second
Yeah.
for Mike
Yep.
Evans. I'm okay with that, giving up a second for Evans. So I like that. I'm not mad about it for Lisa or for Undy's side, but it doesn't excite me.
Yeah.
It helps him get up a year, which gives him more of an opportunity to move around, like we kind of talked about with him having
Mhm.
all the firsts. Sam Darnold's moved a couple times. I love um Undy getting Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I wasn't mad about that one.
Um
He went and got Trevor Lawrence for Darnold in the second.
I know Trevor Lawrence hasn't been playing well, but I'm
Yeah.
taking the longevity of the number one overall pick and his draft class to play out. Jacksonville needs to get rid of their coach. They need to figure out a new offensive system. And Trevor Lawrence will be just fine all over again. So I'm not worried about him. I like the move to go get Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I sent Zamir White to Undy for James Conner in a second. Um, I was shocked that I got a second on top of James Conner to get rid of Zamir White. And I think that that's probably the sentiment for most people. James Conner has been putting up better numbers. I get Zamir White's younger, and I got a second on top of it. So I'd imagine that was your sentiment and most people in the league.
Yeah, that one was interesting. I didn't fully understand the second. I understand that Zamir's younger. But maybe I'm the crazy one. Younger doesn't always mean higher value. Um, so
Listen, he offered a second, and I said, okay, do it. Yeah, go
yeah.
for it.
So you know what? If that's the price he wanted to pay, then I can't fault a man for that. So
He got the guy he wanted.
yep, yep. So
Um,
skip down to that Terry McLaurin one.
yeah, CEH was on the move. I'm not sure he's ever going to see the field again, but he was on the move. Terry McLaurin, Underhill sends Terry McLaurin to the Bag Boys for Lad McConkey and a third. Um, I am I like Terry McLaurin this year. I think he's a good wide receiver. Jaden Daniels has been using him. I think Lad McConkey is going to be a good wide receiver for the next handful of years. Is he going to be the one? Maybe not. But if they can get a good one there and Lad can just be a support role in the two spot, I think that's actually going to be more beneficial for him. You've seen, not under Harbaugh, but you've seen that Justin Herbert can support two wide receivers. So if they can pull in another good wide receiver, I think that's actually going to be a good thing for Lad moving forward. Terry McLaurin's going to be fine with Jaden Daniels. They'll keep him. They'll keep rolling. I like both wide receivers. So I'm not mad about this trade either way. I'll be interested to see what comes of Lad moving forward, though.
Yeah, I think I like this trade for Undy getting what was a first round wide receiver this year in our draft. Like Lad, I think him and Herbert will do well. I just think the Chargers need one other weapon to kind of help free him up. But I really like Lad. I think there's a lot of potential there. So good job, Undy, getting younger. Bag boys, you went and grabbed another wide receiver to help make your push now. So
Yep.
makes sense. Good trade both sides.
All
Mutual
right. So
benefit.
next Jalen Hyatt was on the move. Okay, we're moving past that.
Hang on. It's not in the chat, but the next trade immediately after that McLaurin one was the biggest trade of them all, Ty.
Was it a 3.5 way?
It it was a three-way with a guy in the corner watching.
That's perfect.
So, and I think that guy in the corner watching was your brother-in-law.
Yeah, not at the time. Maybe
Kinky.
now.
Kinky. Oh man.
Maybe that's why he married
So,
into the family. Don't worry about it.
so I'm gonna run through this real quick. And I want to get your thoughts on it because I think we all have, you've heard our thoughts on it, particularly as it involves you. But here we go. So Tyler gives up CJ Stroud in a 27 third. He gets Justin Herbert and two firsts in 27. Okay, so you sold Stroud, Herbert, and two firsts. I gave up Ayuk in a 20 set, one of those 27 firsts, and I get Rashee Rice in a 26 second. Boyer gave up Herbert, Rice, a second, and a 27 first for Stroud, Ayuk in a third. So I know that's a lot going on. Long story short, I got Rice, gave up a first and Ayuk, and I got a second. Boyer got Stroud and Ayuk, gave up a first and a second, and Herbert, you gave up Stroud and got two firsts. I think you were the biggest winner of this deal, but let's break it down. So
Yeah, so I 100% agree that getting rid of Stroud to get Herbert, I get Herbert's had down weeks, but Herbert has been a good quarterback. I expect with Lad, with a good running game, with them possibly going to be able to bring in another wide receiver next year, I expect Herbert to bounce back. He's not old; he'll be fine. So to move Stroud and a third to grab Herbert and two firsts, I was ecstatic about. I was not thrilled to get rid of Stroud per se because I think he's going to be a good young quarterback, but he's been down the last couple weeks without Nico. So you're seeing some flaws in that Houston team right now with plus Mixon back. They will run the ball with Mixon all day right now, which in fantasy doesn't equate to points for Stroud.
correct.
Same with Mahomes right now, though. I've got him on my team, and they're running the ball with Hunt and not throwing very much, which also kills fantasy points. Um, but I like Herbert. So then going to your guys' side, realistically, now looking back on it, right? You gave up Ayuk, which is now injured for the year. You got Rice, which was already pretty much injured for the year.
He was injured at the time. Yep.
Right. So you gave away 2 weeks of a healthy Ayuk, whatever you want to call that, um, to get Rice. And I personally think Rice is going to be the better long-term asset out of Ayuk and Rice. Um, Mahomes has shown the connection with them. As long as Rice quits doing stupid stuff, I think him and Mahomes will be fine together. I think Rice will jump back in there as at number one. And that's what I want. I don't know how I get Ayuk got the extension. Ayuk has not looked good in San Francisco since the extension. I really don't know what to think about Ayuk. As a Niners fan, I was not thrilled that we gave him a huge extension. Um, we have a lot of guys that could fill that role and would have been fine. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But I like the Rice side right now, especially seeing the that both of them are injured.
Yep.
Um, but at the time, I wasn't mad about Boyer getting Ayuk, getting Stroud. Um, he's going for his championship this year. Stroud's going to help. Ayuk was going to help until now he's not. So he moved the pieces he had to move to go get pieces to help him win this year. As like we said, Rice wasn't going to be that. Herbert was down. Stroud had just had two or three really good games. So he wanted to capitalize on that and keep the Stroud train running. Luckily, that week that we made that trade, we didn't make it till Friday or like super late
Is
Thursday, whatever.
during the Thursday night game.
Yeah, so we started before the Thursday night game. We were this close to pulling the trigger, and there was one piece that missed. So Boyer's like, fine, I have to start Kirk Cousins. And that was a week Kirk Cousins put up like 34 points through 500 yards, whatever the case may be. So Boyer was probably not mad at us for all of a sudden postponing that trade till the third quarter of that game.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, but anyway, anything you want to add to that trade talk?
No, no. I mean, looking back, I might have given up a little bit more than I would have initially wanted to go get Rice, but Rice was a guy I've been trying to acquire since this
4 months
offseason.
ago, 5 months
Yep.
ago.
So, you know what I mean? I'm happy I got my guy. I know I got him while he was down, still probably paid a premium, but now with both guys being out, I'm looking back out on it and I'm not mad at it. I feel pretty good about it now. So we'll see what the future holds. I know I got a suspension in the future, but it'd be great if the league just, along with all the beneficial officiating calls, they just said, "Hey, Rasheed, you're down. We're not going to penalize you anymore." So,
All right. So let's jump to the next trade. Andy gives up Devonte Adams to Underhill for Tyler Johnson and a 27 first. This was one of the more confusing trades to me. Undy giving up a first. I get it's 27 for Devontae Adams when Underhill isn't competing this year. Um, but also Devontae Adams isn't going to help you long term. My only thought process was, well, maybe he's buying low with a first right now in 27. Maybe he can turn around and move Adams if he takes off with the Jets now. If he takes off and maybe he can get a 26 first, a 25 first, and a 27 second or a third. And then maybe he profits a pick, moves that 27 pick to the 25 or 26 draft. But I don't see him getting much more of a haul than a first to move Devontae at some point anyway. So unless he can get a 25 or like an early 26, I guess it just was a weird buy to me.
Yeah, that one didn't fully make sense to me as far as like roster construction and futures go. And he's got a boatload of first now. So I guess he looked at it and said, "Hey, a 27 first is years down the road. I'm gonna go get a guy right now." The one thing I will say I appreciate about Undy, others may disagree, is Undy doesn't like to suck completely. Undy wants to, if he's gonna suck, he wants to suck competitively. Uh, so you know what? He got a guy. Adams was struggling, so I don't think the price that he paid was terrible. I just think maybe we would have expected it to come from a different team, if that makes
Yes,
sense. So
100%.
so that was what started now Andy starting his sales, if you will. So are you good skipping the Taysom Hill? Because
Yeah.
Taysom Hill
And
just died.
then you sent Baker to
I
Lisa,
sent Baker for a second,
and
basically.
Lesack was looking for a quarterback because he was in on
Yep.
Stroud, didn't get Stroud,
Yep.
had moved to another quarterback. He was looking to still find somebody, and then he also um, goes and grabs Burrow as well.
Yep.
So Lesack grabs Baker and Burrow, which are both doing phenomenal right now. So he grabs two good quarterbacks. So he's filling in, playing in place of what would have been a Stroud or somebody else he was looking to get.
For
But
sure.
I like the fact that Lesack's going out and buying a couple quarterbacks so he can play matchups, play the hot hand. Um, but both of
Yeah.
them are good right now, so you're not going wrong either way.
Yep. I mean, he was sitting with Goff and Lawrence initially, which both of them are fine, but neither of them were gonna put him over the top. And so, Baker was number two, I think, on the season so far. I like the value of a second that I got from him, especially starting Allen every week. So makes sense. And then he goes and grabs Burrow and Singletary for a first and a second, essentially. So I think I think he did good there.
That makes sense for Andy to give up Singletary at least. I mean, Burrow could have been an option for the next handful of years, but I'm not mad about him moving Burrow. He got Calvin Austin, a 25 first and 27 second.
Yep,
Um, so he got a first and a second for Burrow and Singletary. Probably could have gotten a hair more for the two of them, but I'm not mad about it.
still not mad about it for sure. So then, as we talked about just a little bit ago, I bought an injured Rice. I gave up Ayuk. Um, Now that Andy's selling, I reached out to him and I ended up buying Tyreek Hill. So I sent a first, my own 26 first, which I'm hoping still will be back half, maybe late. And Undy second this year. So currently sits as the 202. There's a lot of teams down there in that max points for category, so it could maybe be anywhere 202, 204, 205. We'll see. Hopefully a little bit later. And I get Tyreek in a third. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, this is Andy going and getting picks. He got a first and a second. Me and you have talked about it before. Neither of us really care that much about the thirds. Don't tell the rest of the league because they'll keep buying them from us. Um, so he got a first and a second, which is what he wanted. Um, yeah, he gave up Hill in a third. Um, for Tyreek Hill, I sold Debo at his high at a first and a second. I feel like a lot of the wide receivers that are in middle to later age are going for about a first and a second. Um, so I'm not mad about that price. I'm not mad about you going and getting Hill. The only downfall is Tua is gone. He's supposed to be coming back now. So if Tua's back, I like Hill more. If Tua's gonna stay out, gonna get hurt again, then Tua or Tyreek might not be the guy you want for the rest of the year, but he could still be good next year. He's got a couple years left in him.
Yeah, I when I made this trade, I was very involved in looking into when Tua was coming back. Um, Everything I was shown was saying coming back in week 8. And so I wanted to get out in front of it and buy him before Tua came back so that I didn't get stuck in a bidding war. Tyreek was the #1 wide receiver in fantasy last year. So clearly he can produce, that offense can produce. I didn't realize how much respect I had for Tua. I think he gets criticized a lot for just being a mediocre quarterback, but clearly that offense cannot function without him.
Yeah.
So, um, I mean,
You would think with those running backs, with Waddle, with Tyreek, a quarterback that's mediocre at best should be able to step in, get him the ball, just let him go to town. And that's
yeah,
not been the case.
nope, nope. So, like I said, a lot of respect for Tua, now, but yeah, I like this move as, myself, I keep trying to contend. And so I grabbed a younger wide receiver earlier. Now I grab a, more veteran receiver that I think can still make a lot of plays. So,
Yeah. All right. So we got two trades left, both involving Andy still selling off. Andy gets rid of Mixon to Nolan for Blake Corum and a third. So this one to me, I feel like Andy could have gotten maybe a better pick out of Mixon. If you would have just waited and watched these last couple weeks of Mixon going for 22 to 25 points. Um, I'm not mad about Blake Corum. I just he's still stuck behind Kyron Williams. If Kyron Williams goes down, Blake Corum's going to be a stud. I think Blake Corum's going to be stuck in a timeshare though for at least the next couple years. Um, and then getting a third and 25, which is undies, which is early. I, it's fine, but it's not a pick that I'm looking for. If you could have made this Blake Corum in a middle second, I probably would have been happier about it. But I don't know what the market was for Mixon right now. Now it probably is hotter that he's heating up again. Um, I don't know what the market was at the time, but I still think Andy could have gotten a little bit more out of Mixon.
yeah, I agree. I immediately had a couple other managers message me and go, that was it. Like I would have given way more. So, Andy, make sure you check with everybody before you move a good running back. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I do think there's more. Blake Corum, I understand the youth, I think he went somewhere like, I don't know, 204, 205 in our draft, somewhere in that ballpark, but he was good in Michigan. I just I think he could have gotten a little bit more, but time will tell. So,
Yeah, and it's a guy that Andy liked. So I mean, I'm not mad about it.
yep.
He went 201. So
Okay. So,
essentially a late first, early second for Mixon there. So I mean, and that's what I'm saying.
okay.
Like,
Yep. If you like a guy, go get him.
yeah. So all right. And then Andy has one more that he worked on again with Nolan. Nolan sends Laporta a 27 first, a 26 fourth to get Cup Hawkinson and a 27 second. Um, so I was kind of torn on this trade, right?
Yep.
Um, Cup is still going to be good for at least this year. Andy didn't need him. Hawkinson's the piece that I'm looking at, right? And I like Hawkinson a lot. He's still young enough that I'm not overly concerned about him. Andy got Laporta. Michael Wilson, fine, but I'm not excited about him. So Laporta in a 27 first for
For
Cup
Cup Hawkinson too.
for Hawkinson in a second. So Laporta in a first for Hawkinson in a second, Cup for Wilson in a 26 fourth. Like I don't know. I think selling them separately, we might have gotten a little bit more out of. Um, I'm not mad about it because right, Andy needs the picks, needs the youth, needs to adjust. Andy does love to have a positional advantage at tight end, and Laporta could be that. Um, so as long as Laporta keeps producing as a top 3 to 5 or 3 to 5 tight end, Andy's fine. Um, but I still like Hawkinson a lot. Um, so I feel like there could have been a little bit more to gain out of this, but for Andy's perspective, getting Wilson, which is only 22, getting Laporta, which is still young, getting the first, um, for Cup and Hawkinson. I giving up that 27 second, um, seemed like it was kind of unnecessary, but you know, I maybe a third. I feel like it was a little bit much, but he went and got the first, and the first is what matters, right? And getting Laporta's still young. That's what matters.
Yep.
Um, but I still feel like Andy got maybe shorted a hair on this one.
Yeah. I know Andy was trying to squeeze all he could get out of this particular deal and trade partner. I think you're right. There might have been higher value if we would have split them up. Um, One thing I said to Andy as he was bouncing ideas off of me was, hey, less than a year ago, you paid a total of three firsts for Cup and Hawk. So you cannot leave that trade without getting a first. So I'm glad he got that so that he at least got a little bit of a return on investment. The one thing that I don't understand here is Andy has Pitts, one of the younger, should be very good tight ends. He's having a much better year with Kirk Cousins. So was Laporta really the piece he needed there? If I'm looking at Nolan's team, he's got a lot of young wide receivers. He's got some younger running backs. I don't know. I would have maybe tried to go in a different position. I don't know that tight end would have been the focal point of that trade that I would have wanted back. But like you said, Andy does like tight ends, so I get it.
Yeah. And maybe if Pitts takes off, maybe Laporta keeps doing well, he can trade one of those for a first and a second, right? Which then he's getting that the two first and a second, right? Maybe and the insulated value on Laporta is there, right? People have seen it. People know that he's on a good team, good offense. The insulated value is there for Laporta. The insulated value, even for Pitts, is still there. He was an early pick, young guy.
Yep.
Um, so I'm not mad about it. Nolan wasn't giving up a wide receiver. He's been trying to buy a wide receiver. Andy got the one young running back that he wanted off that team, which was Blake Corum. So I mean, at that point, get the best insulated value, and that is Laporta. So I'm not mad about it, but here we are. So that's the end of our trades. We'll hit a little I know you're drinking water, but pal, what am I drinking? Because I have a beer in my hand. I am drinking Wild Range Brewing Company IPA. It's a
Well,
decent beer. So
where's it out of?
I have no idea. Brewing Company, Rochester, New York.
All right. All right.
I believe you can get them at Aldi if you need a Aldi
A
brand
supplier.
here.
Nice. Well,
Um,
I had a Blue Moon, but now I have moved on to Aquafina.
nice. So, all right, well, let's jump to a little bit of a playoff prediction here. Real quick. This week, week 8, I get Burns, so that's gonna be a big matchup for us. If I can beat Burns, that might push Burns into a sell mode, or maybe not even a sell mode, but an adjust mode if he goes to 4-4. Lesack gets Jer Fry, so he's going to move to 8-0. So Burns has to win this to stay within striking distance almost. Matt and Andy play each other, so that's a fun 2-5 battle. You get Underhill, so that should be a nice win for you as well. Nolan gonna keep up with you playing Paul this week. And then Boyer and Kelly should be a good matchup. Um, so there's at least a couple decent matchups on the slate for this week to watch with Kelly and Boyer and me and Burns. Other than that, I feel like most of these games are probably going to go the wrong way. Any other matchups we need to watch this week, or any thoughts on what could happen after this week?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at the next couple weeks, and I got them all pulled up here, so I can kind of see them. But there's a few to watch. You mentioned you versus Burns, Boyer versus Kelly is a big one. And then on top of that, next week I've got Lesack.
And
Burns
Burns
has
gets
Boyer.
Boyer. Yeah.
Yep. So, and then if you take it 1 week further, then you've got you versus Lesack, Burns versus Kelly, Boyer versus Nolan. So I think over the next 3 weeks, I mean, we just talked about 7 different matchups that are all versus people that are either leading their division, facing someone who is chasing that wild card and still in it, not quite out of it. So I mean, Burns is a team, Kelly's a team that I think they're both sitting at 4-3. They
Yep.
need to win those games, and they need Boyer, myself, and Nolan to lose. And I think we each have a game that is very easily lost. Now we got to make sure we win our games against the Undies or the Pauls or whoever we're playing, that week. But I think you're going to see a lot of shakeup over the next 3 weeks, which I think is going to lead to buyers versus sellers. People making a stronger push. People saying, you know what, I'm going to not necessarily toss the season away, but maybe I move on from an older piece. So I could see Burns and Kelly being two of the biggest movers, either buyers or sellers. I know Kelly isn't always making 35 trades a year, but Kelly makes moves when he needs to make them. And I could see him maybe being a dark horse and making a move. I could also see Burns, he's got Pollard and Montgomery, two older backs. Maybe if things don't go his way, maybe he moves one of those guys and goes and loads up on some younger talent. So
Yeah.
we'll
And
see. I
Kelly
think it's
and,
exciting.
and Kelly's sitting on Derrick Henry, Debo Samuel, Amari Cooper. So a couple of those guys could net up decent picks.
Yeah,
And he's still got Travis Etienne, which I think is going to be fine long term to pair with a Ramondre. So it's not like he has to go into full rebuild mode, right? He's still got a couple decent young running backs. Um, he's still got Olave. He's still, if he sells off one of his wide receivers, he still sits on, the other. If he sells off Cooper, he still sits on Chris Olave plus Debo Samuel. So there's still some good pieces there for him. He's got Jaden Daniels, Dalton Kincaid. So it's not like he has to full on go to rebuild, but moving on from a couple guys to grab a couple picks to make contenders stronger if they're willing to give up some picks. Um, and
yep,
moving to Henry to get a first rounder still if somebody's willing to go all in. Next year's running back class is still solid. So you go in there and find somebody that would not replace Henry's value, but at least has the opportunity to get in there and make some moves. So
for sure.
we'll
For
see.
sure.
I would love to be closer to the conversation of buying versus selling. I need Boyer. Boyer does have, like we said, he plays Kelly this week. So Kelly wins. He plays Burns next week. If Burns can beat him,
He's got Nolan the following
then he's
week,
got Nolan the following week. So I
then
mean,
me the following week.
yeah,
Like,
I
you know
mean,
what I mean?
I've got Burns and then Andy and then Lesack. So I've got two tough matchups in itself, but I got Andy and Jer Fry 2 of the 4 weeks. So if I can pull out one of the wins and get 3, and Boyer can lose 2 or 3 of the next 4, there's at least a shot. He'd have to lose at least 3 of the next 4 for me to make up some ground before we hit division. But the problem is Paul and Matt are going to kill me probably come division anyway.
Yep.
So I would love to be able to buy, but even with like my quote unquote like easier competition, right? I play Andy and Jer Fry. It's too far out. I would love to freaking go compete with Boyer though. So
Yeah, I'm looking at kind of my projections for the season, and I don't know if you're ready for this, but I do think it's going to be a dogfight for that wild card spot. I mean, I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 teams. Um, if the division leaders stay where they are, I think there's 4 teams that could vie for that wild card. I think that's Nolan, Burns. I mean, Nolan's viable for or for our division. He's only 1 game back from me, Kelly, and then yourself. So I think we're still probably a 6 or 7 team race. I know you're chasing a little bit more than you'd like to be, but I think the next week or two, I think we're going to see that go from a maybe 7 team race to a 5 team race. I think there's going to be one team that's kind of hanging in there that's trying to vie for that last wild card spot.
yeah, no, I'd agree. So looking forward to now that we've kind of talked a little bit about that, looking forward to playoffs. Uh Bag Boys should be locked up for my division. I don't think there's any chance I'm catching them. Lesac realistically should be locked up for that division since he's kind of in the same boat that me and Bag Boys are. Where even if he loses a couple, Burns wins a couple, they both get to play Andy. They both get to play Underhill at the end of the year. Um, and I don't know that there's going to be quite enough time for Burns to make up that ground. So I have a
Yep.
feeling being 7-0, Lesac's going to lock up that division unless he just absolutely falls apart. And then I'm going to have you hold strong at your division lead. I think you're going to be able to maintain it. Like we've said, Nolan's got a good team. Nolan's been pushing. He's been buying. So it's going to be tough. You guys all get the win against Jer Fry later on in the season. I haven't looked at your guys' full on schedule, but you, Kelly, and Nolan all really need to beat up on each other a little bit to help me and Burns out a little bit to make that wild card push if that's where we're going to go.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I got you in, I got Lesac in, I got Boyer in, and I'm probably going to put Nolan in at this point because he is a buyer. He did go out and get Saquon, get Mixon. He got Kelsey, which I think will be good long term. Sitting on Aaron Jones, which has been a great running back so far this year. His big downfall right now, he did get Cup. So if Cup comes back and is healthy, right? DJ Moore hit or miss, Garrett Wilson hit or miss. DK Metcalf has been pretty solid
Rush.
so far, but his running backs are good, but he doesn't have those wide receivers to really push him over right now. So he needs Cup to come back healthy to really make that run too.
Yeah, and he needs Kyler to stay on.
Yeah, well, he's got Sam Darnold, and honestly, I'm not even mad about that.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah,
almost
but
take
he's
I'd almost take the guaranteed 15, 16 points out of Darnold than risking
the
it
8,
with
25.
Kyler at some point.
Yeah. Yep, I feel that. Yeah, so I've got um the same 3 division leaders that you do. I've got Lisak as the 1 seed, Boyer and I are in the 2, 3 spot. And then correct me if I'm wrong, our wild card tiebreaker for record goes to head to head. Is that right? Or is it strictly to points for?
Give me a quick second. Let me go back and verify. I'd hate to give out wrong information.
You're all good.
Um, Wild card goes record, then points for.
So with
Championship winners go, or division winners go, division record, head to head points for, wild card went record, and then points for.
okay, that's right, because we talked about how it wouldn't make sense if you only like division, you play each other twice, but then in no, non-division, you only play people once.
Right,
So
but
points
somebody Burns and Nolan could play each other as a
yep,
rivalry,
rivalries. Yep.
and then they split. Where then there could be another person that they only play once, and they're all three in the same five,
Yep. Yep.
whatever, 5-3 record, right? And then each of them played this guy once, but they played each other twice, and then it becomes a mess on who played who and how that works out. Since we
Yep.
play everybody out of division once, except for
So
this person we have that rivalry
so
with.
with that,
Are you there?
yeah, you keep freezing on me. Um, no, so with that being said, my wild card spot is gonna go to Burns.
His max points for is definitely higher right now. Not max points for, but just points for right now is higher.
His points for is higher. Um, I I think Burns finds a way here. I think he's got too much talent on that team. He's got, between his next 4 weeks are brutal. It's you, Boyer, Kelly, myself. Sorry, Nolan and myself. His next 5 weeks are brutal. I think if he can find a way to win 3 of those, he can get in.
So my biggest concern about Burns, right, is his starting lineup is good. I don't like his bench. He's not
I
deep enough to sustain any sort of issues.
agreed.
When you're looking at Josh Downs and Darnell Mooney as your backup options, like Mooney's been fine this year, and somebody will yell at me and say, "Oh, Mooney's a startable wide receiver." Sure, yeah, great, but it doesn't excite me to play him. Tony Pollard has been fine. He's been splitting some work, but the Titans are just so bad.
Yep.
Like
I
J.K.
agree.
Dobbins has been good, but he's gone over 10 points 3 weeks and been under 10 points 3 weeks. So he's good, but he doesn't excite me. So
Yep.
I think there's enough holes there. And my problem is no one has bought so many players with Saquon, with Mixon, with Cup.
Hmm.
If those three, if any year is going to be Nolan's year, it's this year to push himself over with how much he has bought veteran talent.
Yep. I agree. I think the game that's gonna decide this is week 11, Burns versus Nolan.
Very
I think
good.
that's gonna be our wild card deciding game. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it very well could be.
So circle it, flex it to the afternoon game, Sunday night football. I don't care what you have to do. That's the game to watch.
And looking at
Sunday
both,
night, Monday night in America.
looking at week 11, neither one of them have buys on their starting lineup right now. So with them
I'm
having no
telling you,
buy,
that's gonna be the game.
neither of them have buys on their starting lineup. So it's a healthy, as long as they're all healthy, it should be a hell of a matchup. So all right.
Which what does Sleeper say right now? Sleeper says Boyers or Burns is a 5 point favorite right now. We'll see.
Yep. There's a long way to go. A lot of football to be played.
Long way to go. So, all
All
right.
right.
Anything
Well,
else?
nah, I think I'm good. So if you got nothing else, there's your midseason recap. All the trades, all the things, playoff predictions. Kelly and I will for sure be in consolation bracket with whoever loses from Nolan and Burns is where we're at. So it we'll see what happens there too. The rest of you clowns can hang out in the bottom. So other than that, I think we're out. We'll see you.